Okay, I think we are live now. Looks like.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to say people are starting to come in, so now's a good time to start the nanny. So thanks, for joining us today to learn and engage in our deep dive discussion. So today we're going to discuss the need for a kind of massive shift in our thinking when it comes to, governing artificial intelligence. So these kinds of non-deterministic, task action-oriented agents are not just simply software to install. They're more like human workers who need to be governed and managed just like humans, or held to the same standards so that they can work successfully in the real world. And today's discussion is, part of a series of deep dives that will teach you all the ways on how to properly approach implementing and deploying AI at enterprise scale and have it actually work in the real world.
And
And
we
you
have
know,
we have 10 of these sessions, 10 to 12 sessions that we
10
will
to
have.
12?
Rebecca.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
And as you probably know, like a demo always looks kind of flawless when you're in this very controlled environment, right? So an agent, takes a customer ticket, updates the CRM, drafts that proposal, routes it for approval, and it all impressively kind of demonstrates its ability to go about this workflow and could do it in seconds. But in the messy real world where all sorts of unexpected situations can arise, these kinds of AI rollouts have proven to not only be kind of unsuccessful, but could be really damaging to company reputation, to legal compliance, and ultimately just broken trust with customers and organizations, right? So Raja, you have obviously deep experience in this field and have contributed articles to Harvard Business Review on scaling AI and others. When it comes to business leaders, or some business leaders get excited over a seamless demo of an AI agent, updating records and routing approvals. But what dangerous assumption do they often make when deploying AI?
Yeah. I think it is. Hey, everyone, by the way, I think I should greet everyone first. Um, so, having built these systems over the last 2 to 3 years, one of the most common mistakes is thinking of these systems as your typical SaaS deployment. Um, in a typical SaaS deployment, what ends up happening is that you treat this as typically a one-time process. Uh, we're deploying this CRM, or we are deploying this database, or some data warehouse. You have an IT review, IT or InfoSec review. You have some legal review. You have some compliance related um, discussions, or maybe audits. And once everything goes through procurement, this is the expected price per seat. We'll be paying per seat. Are you SOC 2 compliant or not? Okay, that's this permissions. Everything is all set up. Now you deployed software, and pretty much everything is uh, deterministic. Most uh, paths are deterministic. But when you deploy agentic AI, uh, the non-determinism combined with autonomy that we give to these systems, it creates an infinite surface area, right? So you have so many possibilities that could happen. Um, you know, your permissions are configured in SaaS. You have configured them in a certain manner. But now, when you come in and you deployed an agent, and someone may come in and inject a prompt to an agent. Um, Whether I type in something, or as a customer, the end user types in something, or a system prompt that comes in, or some context that is retrieved, to an LLM, all of this is text. All of this is, well, tokens, text, context, whatever we may want to call it. So all of
Right.
this comes in, and it doesn't know which one is, LLM necessarily does not know what is malicious and what is not. Um, and not necessarily from a maliciousness standpoint, right? There are so many things that could go wrong. Um, if you look at it, sometimes I think you're aware, right? So that blog post that we wrote, right? That you're um, when you deploy an agentic AI system, it is going to expose your broken processes. It is going to, an agentic AI system, when you deploy it, it is going to expose your broken processes. It is going to expose uh, problems with your operating model, right? So if you have, um, what happens is, let's say a process is being followed by a human, a bunch of humans, your human workers. Now, if there is something that is broken, if something does not work, guess what? Someone knows, some human will step in and they will say, "Yeah, I know. I mean, this machine when it stops, you have to unplug it or maybe kick it, and it starts working again, right?" And then the process keeps going. But when you grant it autonomy to AI agents, you have two options. Either they are going to fail miserably when this ambiguous process comes in, this ambiguity comes in based on many reasons, and we'll talk about that. Or um, it is going to take a wrong decision. And if they are too autonomous, then basically what we're talking about is that maybe potentially there's some execution risk. They might go and do things that they should not be doing. I mean, issue a refund, maybe give a wrong diagnosis,
Yeah.
update
Right.
a record, or something as serious as that classic, well-known Moffat versus Air Canada example, that the chatbot, based on whatever context it had, it went ahead and granted or actually promised a bereavement fare refund, which did not exist. The
Yeah,
passenger came back, demanded the refund, which did not exist. A matter went to court, and court ruled in favor of the customer, and Air Canada had to pay the customer.
for sure. And I think, a lot of companies, I could see how they've been very used to working in this SaaS mode of rollouts. They've probably, been doing this for a couple of decades now, where it was all about software. And it might not always be natural to think of agents like humans. I mean, sometimes we can even look at the kind of identity and access shortcuts that could be overlooked, that could cause some pretty, catastrophic consequences. So, if you think about it, a human onboarding maybe gets an ID badge and roles specific permissions on day one that they onboard. But, many AI agents, however, they tend to get this kind of shared backend service with broad administrative access.
Mhm.
So maybe, Raja, you could talk further about why this is such a big problem.
So let's step back a little bit, right? So as you pointed out, when you bring in a new employee um, in my building, for instance, right? So a visitor cannot even get past
Right.
the lobby area without getting entered, and the card key and all of that, a temporary visitor badge. But in an organization, when you deploy the agents, right? So now these agents are deployed, and pretty much anyone who has access to the Agentic AI platform, they go ahead and start creating these agents, right? And these agents are usually connected to um, higher privilege service accounts.
Mhm.
And this is a fundamental friction, call it the identity friction, that exists in these systems, right? So you have these agents may have access to certain actions or certain information that they should not have access to. Perhaps your agent, so you and I are using the same agent, connected through a service account to some action, some tools or some actions or some context sources that perhaps you are authorized to those actions or those sources of data. I'm not. But through that agent, I can actually go and access it. So that is a fundamental flaw in how we approach deploying AI agents. So if I list all of the frictions, and one is this identity friction, and we'll perhaps talk about this in detail. An identity friction I call the way to look at this is that agent does not have its own identity. Or it is a shared identity through a service account. I use it or you use it. It's the same agent, right? And that's a
Right.
fundamentally flawed way of looking at it, right? Then the context friction that is there when we deploy these agents. Um, Anytime, I've been teaching AI machine learning for data science for quite some time now. Anytime I ask an organization, how good is your data? And then you have these, smiles on people's faces because everyone
Right.
who has worked in this industry, they know data is never good, right? So, you will have poor quality data, fragmentation, duplication, PII exposure and all of that.
There's always
So,
challenges there.
yeah, so many challenges, right? So now, um, when a human goes and looks at this data, so they are to some extent, there is a chance that they will detect, they will identify, and any PII, hey, I should not, maybe I should not. Um, and going back to an extension of the identity problem, maybe through a service account, I was able to hit a data source that I should not have access to, right? So, or maybe the data is duplication, maybe outdated data. In the HBR article, I think we talk about this. I've talked about this where this is an actual customer example where we built a benefits engine, and um, the HR, the person building that agent, we were helping them, came back and said, "Hey, this is giving outdated information. It's not working correctly." And my first reaction, "Hey, you must have added
Right.
that outdated source of information, outdated source of data, um, um, benefits from previous year um, to the document repository." No, no, no. I mean, we have taken care of it. But very well, when you look at trace it back, you find out, yes, I mean, oh, who added this here? And then you find out that, yes, I mean, the older documents did indeed exist in that pipeline. The agent is not at fault here. It is basically the humans managing it or the outdated data because an agent is an agent. It is going to actually go and make decisions based on whatever context it has. Right?
Only as good as
Um,
the data it's given. Data's
yeah,
still the number one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the third friction is that accountability friction. Accountability
Right.
is, well, if um, in a human organization, pretty much we are able to understand when something goes wrong, there is, you can actually go and understand what happened under the hood, how the decisions happened. LLMs, to make them accountable, you have to have that layer of observability, understand what reasoning, which tools were called, what actions were taken, how was the context interpreted, what was the reasoning, what was the plan. So there are actually all these tools, state-of-the-art tools that are available um, that that allow you to go through this entire set of accountability. Um, uh, um, Basically, when we deploy, these are, I sometimes actually put it this way, that, the best way to actually do an enterprise deployment with agents is to take a more anthropomorphic view of agents. Treat them like humans, treat them like teammates,
Right.
hold them to the same standard that you would hold um, a new employee who comes in. And then also we also proposed this framework, what we call the graduated autonomy, right? So instead of granting them full autonomy, start with more, instead of an agent, start with an assistant, start with an assistive output, um, then um, give them autonomy with guardrails, then supervised actions, and then give them bounded autonomy, right? So slowly, gradually, just like a new person who joins an organization, we do not give them, hey, just go. You have access to all systems.
Right, right.
Usually, I need this. So, okay, we just go and double check, right? So what is their security group? I mean, can they access this data warehouse or not? Can they access to this group in SharePoint or not, or Dropbox? Whatever systems are, so those policies are enforced. So I think that is how we typically approach.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I also I wanted to further like unpack or bring up this case study, with when we're talking about agents accessing things they shouldn't. There was a real a case out there of an AI agent somehow deleting a production database. So there's this case where developers were testing a
Hmm.
coding agent. They had explicitly told the agent not to
Hmm.
make changes to the production database, but the agent somehow ended up deleting the production database anyway. How does something like this happen? Raja,
Yeah.
maybe you could explain further how this occurred.
Yeah. So I think engineers and devs being devs, right? So I think this was the story you're pointing to is a Replit story, right? So mm, amazing platform, by the way, right? It's a wonderful platform, but I mean, greatest tools, if abused, misused, can
Right,
backfire. So I think the story in that case goes like this: that whoever was building that system, they granted the agent admin root level permissions. Right. So
right,
complete full permission, go crazy, right? And this happens actually again and again. Um, that fatigue for those of us who have used Claude Code, and those of us who have not used Claude Code, but they have used Windows Vista. If you remember, if you're old enough to remember Windows Vista, that fatigue with the okay, trust. Do you really want to do this? Do you really want to do this? So they keep asking this question. Hey, I'm tired. Just always allow, right? So give that a blanket permission. So um, this group of engineers, they actually were building a website, Replit, great website, production website. And then uh, for testing and validation and other things, they also needed those elevated permissions. And they granted those elevated permissions to their agent. And this agent ended up deleting the production database. And uh, the funny part is that to to make things worse, because I think the way it was reported, the agent was intentionally trying to hide things. Of course, they are not sentient, right? Of course, they are not going
Oh,
to try to
wow. Yeah.
hide. But the way it works is, well, it thought it may be a good idea to actually generate some logs as well. So not only that the agent deleted things, but it generated some additional logs that made it more confusing to to debug and stop and recover from what was going on.
Yeah, no, it's definitely mind-blowing to hear of stories like this happen. And I think another thing I was just thinking about, like, is like these hidden instructions and prompt injections that you sometimes see. So, from my understanding, large language models, tend to process input in one context window. And I think you had mentioned something of this before. So, attackers, can hide all sorts of malicious instructions inside web forms, for example, or maybe PDFs and emails. And the instructions that the agent was initially set up with is also processed with any new instructions, from the person prompting. Is
Yeah,
that right? Maybe you can help, explain further on how something like that
yeah.
occurs.
Yeah, so by the way, it is not purely from a malicious intent. It could have some noble intentions as well.
Oh,
So
right. Right.
interestingly, it is fun that you mentioned this. So I've been lately, long time after I finished my PhD, so I'm again starting to publish a few papers. So the other day, my academic collaborators, I was talking to them, so they told me
Right.
these conferences, NeurIPS and ICML, they have started as you know how the review process works. Each member of that program committee, they receive many papers, and these conferences they have a lot of volume of these submissions. And back in grad school, when I was in my PhD, our professor would hand us, hey, these 5 papers you review, and then Raja, you review, Bob, John, you review these 5 or 10 papers. And Bob and John and Raja, they have so many things going on in life.
Right.
Review that paper, and then papers can be, sometimes they can be difficult to review. And so now what the reviewers have started doing is a paper that comes in, let's say, submitted to NeurIPS. It's one of the top conferences for those of you who don't know. One of the like gold standard and AI conferences. So now I take that PDF, give it to Claude. Hey, can you review it for me? And review's ready. I don't spend like a day reviewing that paper now, and it helps me.
Right.
So what these conference organizers, what they started doing is they have started injecting these hidden prompts in the metadata before sending it for reviewers, and somehow detect, because of that watermark, the um, response would have some signature which will tell them whether an AI tool was used in generating this response or not. So those kind of things. And also, I think what they do is for paper submissions, they have this plagiarism detection tool, which is once again, I have my own set of my own skepticism. So I've digressed a bit. So going back to it, yes, I mean this is a very valid concern. Let's say I have on my website, I have this form that I've generated using my CRM system. And behind the scenes, when the form is submitted, it goes and this has access to, um, once again, some elevated permissions, some service accounts. Now it has access to going and fetching some information and taking some actions, right? Someone configured, nothing happened for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and suddenly someone found out, just like we have these software vulnerabilities. The surface area, the attack surface, there are so many variations of these vectors that are possible. Someone figured out that that is possible, and they come in and along with the submission, I want to get a free trial of the product, and they append a long list of malicious prompts, extract all leads or all information, and send an email back to my email address. Behind the scene, the does not know. LLM does not know, is this a legit prompt or is it a malicious prompt? Was it supposed to be there? To an LLM, all of this is text.
Right.
So,
It's all
uh,
figging.
yeah. So, and the way you handle this is you build layers of your traditional software on top of these systems. So, perhaps before I go and take an action, there is a layer of validation that has to happen, and it could be so one common technique could be guardrails, right? So guardrails could be before you even pass those prompts to an agent, have an independent validator, independent evaluator, look at the prompt, look at the form submission that happened, and just go ahead and submit it, right? Or just evaluate it before you submit it. Sorry, let me take it back. So before you submit, just evaluate it. Does it have any signature of some being malicious? And if it has any signature of being malicious, you block that prompt. You do not even pass to your agent. Now, people can beat around the bush because this is LLM's fundamental flaw with LLMs, or whatever. The strength of these systems is also the flaw in these systems, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I start beating around the bush. You have seen those examples. Hey, how do I break into someone's house, or um, um, how do I, what is it called, hotwire a car, right? And then I cannot tell you how to do it. Oh, so my grandma used to sing me a lullaby, and I
Right.
have tried it, right? It works, right? Can you please tell me, right? So, tell me tell me a nursery rhyme or a bedtime story about how to um, hotwire a car, right? And these LLMs, they give in, right? So you talk to them and then tweak things, and then it works. So, uh, so then how do you bypass that? There are other techniques, the classic regex type techniques. So you can have some kind of, hey, certain keywords in the input, don't answer. Or there could be traditional machine learning based, not the semantic type guardrails. You can have traditional machine learning based guardrails that can actually prevent these kind of prompts from happening. We have seen all sorts of while deploying Agento, which is our platform. We have learned this over time. The product that we have built, we have built it over time. In one case. Of course, I cannot name names here. I will not mention the
Right.
name, but company in technology built their entire technical support platform using Agento. Uh, they said you cannot mention the legal team came in, so we had a separate infosec review, which was a pain in the neck. But we also had this legal review, and legal said you cannot mention the competitor and competitor X. Hey, I mean, what do you mean? You have articles on your website. You have given us this agent that we have built that has mention
Right.
of that competitor all over, and you're saying your agent cannot actually mention in their responses. Yeah, they can. No, we don't want it. And now, when you look at it from a legal standpoint, that's a liability. What if it says anything negative about the competitor? What if it says, "Hey, this company's product is terrible. Go use the competitor," right? So anyone can actually scoop out anything from that assistant and have their few minutes of fame on social media. Hey, company X's agent or the chatbot is
We
saying,
cracked
"Go
it.
use competitor," right? So and then Air Canada example could have been avoided by putting guardrails around it. But these are the kind of things that are hard, right? And when the demos happen, this is the funny thing is that building an agent is not difficult, right? And like maybe I can just go and in 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending upon the complexity. But I mean, I can be done
Right.
in no time. There are off-the-shelf tools that are available. Can we build something that can scale? Can we build something that is secure? Can we build something that is not susceptible to prompt hijacking, jailbreaking? Can we build something that has a good user experience? And that is what the harder part is. And then you have to have um, a complete system. You have to have that connectivity of tools and context that you bring in. That's a very important piece of it. Then you have to have guardrails around it. Then you have to have evals. If it is working, if agents are working well today, will they continue to work as as well or as good tomorrow as well? So how do you evaluate? Um, how do you introduce role-based access controls? How do you, if the agent inherits my permissions, and if I use it, it inherits my permissions, and if you're using it, it inherits your permissions. So there are so many nuances when you're building and deploying these systems at enterprise level at scale that make building these systems incredibly hard.
No, for sure. And I think one of our audience members brought up an interesting point where they say, I think it's important to not only just use context permission files, but build explicit tools for agents instead of giving them access to, the entire command space, which I think is along the lines of what you were discussing too.
Yes, let me see. It is important to not only just use context permission files, but also explicit. So yes, I mean explicit tools for agents instead of giving them access to entire command space. That is correct, very correct. But even with those tools, you still have to have those granular permissions, right? So you still have to have those permissions. So um, first of all, I think there is an identity problem here, whether you should have access to it or not. And then there is this context problem, whatever the context is fetched, is that correct or not? But then generally, I agree. This was a comment from YouTube. I treat my agent like a person, and they are integrated into my infrastructure like a person. Yeah, that is exactly what we are advocating here. This is a comment from Vincent Hamilton. I see someone has raised our hand in within the Zoom webinar. I don't think you have access to mic. Maybe if you can type in your question in Q&A, we should be able to answer or in the chat.
Sure, we'll keep an eye on that question as it comes through for sure.
Yeah.
I also thought of something that might be really important to bring up is, an AI's decision doesn't always happen in this kind of easy, single, transparent step. So it sometimes can emerge from this highly complex sort of chain of events. And it can seem a little bit like a black box, right? And I think there's this real example of a procurement agent that was perhaps given a vague instruction that led it to post really confidential contract terms into a public Slack channel. Maybe you could walk us through this example here and what could go wrong in an AI agent's chain of events that would make something like this happen?
I think this is once again one of those things that um, uh, um, your LLM at the core, right? An agent is much more than the LLM, right? So I'm not sure. I'm assuming that the audience that we have, they are coming from diverse backgrounds. So, um, so at the core of an agent is an LLM, but an agent is this broader term for um, this core LLM combined with um, some kind of what we call it the scaffold, call it the harness, and the harness can consist of primarily the reasoning that is happening, fetching data from different tools. I may have access to my Slack and Teams channel, or my CRM system, or my SQL database, or web search. So any kind of source of context
Right.
that is there. Then my harness, in for instance, in Agento, we have observability layer. Every action that happens, every tool call that happens, every context that is fetched, every kind of reasoning that happens, every step that is taken, we log it, right? So that's there. Then, in addition to that, when the query comes in, you break it down, you fetch the context, you have some action tools that you're connected to. So in this particular case that you're mentioning, the way this happened was that and it was accidental. It was not malicious, by the way, right? So it was a Slack bot connected, behind the scene, it is deployed somewhere. And now someone said, share everything transparently. And it decided to become too transparent. And it shared
Oh
everything.
dear.
And then it had access service. Once again, the service account problem, elevated permissions. It was connected to, even though there were, um, it was configured, but it had access. It was configured properly, but I should not say properly actually here. So it was configured in a manner that it should not have done this, but the fact that it had information, the fact that it had access to some information that this word transparently triggered, and some confidential information was posted in the Slack channel for the entire org to view.
Right. It's yeah, kind of scary to think about. And it makes me, it just reminds me, so like you mentioned this before, of Mafat versus Air Canada, the bereavement fair policy, where Air Canada kind of made its own kind of bereavement policy and falsely led a customer into believing they were eligible. They tried to make the defense that its chatbot was a separate entity responsible for its own behavior, but the airline, was held fully and legally liable at the end of the day. And this, well, the AI just did it. It's not a valid legal defense, and companies need real audit trails, maybe a human owner accountable for each agent's behavior. And I know the team here at Agento AI, our team is always, saying an activity log is not an audit trail. And your customers and your regulators are all going to require a clear explanation from you. There's no real excuses. So, Raja, you would probably have a good idea of what proper auditing looks like, what real monitoring, real observability looks like, having worked closely with a number
Mhm.
of enterprises that use the Agento AI platform. Maybe collaborate on why enterprises can't just make the argument that Air Canada made, and what a real audit trail looks like from your experience working with enterprises on Agento.
Um, so the audit trail, it's a tough one, right? So it's a difficult question. So I would look at audit trail as part of the overall what we call the AI governance piece, right? So AI governance has a lot of different aspects of it, right? So, but uh, maybe I will come back to AI governance in just a bit. So audit trail, essentially you could explain. Um, if your agent made a decision, it arrived at a decision. How did it arrive at the decision? So if it gave a response, um, it could be going back to that benefits example. The fact that we were able to find out that that there were some stale documents, we had this explainability layer built on top of it, right? So um, we got that response. These are your benefits for this year. A wrong answer, but we know the source of that information. We click on it, and then we click on the document. Hey, who added this document? And then that's an easy one, right? But then uh, if you go to only the LLM without any external context in place, there's no way to explain it, right? So because LLMs, all the information, it is in their parameters, it is compressed in their parameters. The information is not actually, I do not know. So if I go and ask it, who was the first president of United States, it will say it was George Washington. I cannot ask it, hey, where did you find this out from? Because well, the LLM somehow has compressed or memorized all of this, so it is built in. But if it is from some of the information that it is fetching externally, um, from today or the between the time when the LLM training was we froze that the training data. And now I'm starting to use it in my context, in my organization's context. I have to connect external data sources, my customers, my customer orders, my support tickets. Um, so that is the explainability of the sources. But then there's a whole lot that goes on when we are building these applications. You connect to different data sources. You have to know which data sources the response came from, whether a guardrail triggered or did not trigger, um, which information it inferred, what kind of queries. Sometimes if you're connected to a SQL system, or SQL database. So you type in a query in your natural language, it gets converted into a SQL query. So you can go and see, hey, this was the original natural language question, and this was the SQL equivalent SQL query. And then you
Right.
can try to reason, okay, this must have happened, right? Or this information came from here, and that information came here, and then both of these were combined, and then you came up with this. So you go and drill down and literally log every step in the process, which is what looks like a single LLM call to me is essentially a whole bunch of multiple LLM calls, and many traditional SaaS or traditional API or traditional software calls. For instance, when I go and um, let's say I'm connected to a SQL database. So behind the scenes, I type in a natural language query. It gets converted in a SQL query, um, and then it hits the database as a SQL query, right? Um,
Right.
if I ask it to do some numerical financial analysis, so my the Excel file that I gave it as context and my query that I gave it, both of them might go to a separate sandbox that gets spun up on the fly, and possibly some Python code runs on all of this data, and I get the results. And the purpose of these audit trails is to be able to replicate and understand all of this in as much detail as possible. Some industries, uh, by design, they will require that your um, whatever whenever you are making a decision, whatever output comes in, it is explainable. Explainability and auditability is a regulatory requirement in some cases. In other cases, it is nice to have in case of you don't want to get bad PR or bad press or get into any litigation because of. So if a claim was denied by an LLM, by an insurance company, what is the legal basis? How do you explain that? So those are the kind of things that your a good audit system would have.
Yeah, sure. And I think it is just going back, it is going to require a big mind shift in how we think about things because AI agents, you can give it the same input and get quite a different output each time. It's not always easy to like I'll just give it these inputs and I'll see if it comes to a certain output like traditional software. And it looks like the industry is going through a pretty steep learning curve with this as well. And just going back to that, perfectly controlled demo scenario of your AI agent, if you want to successfully transition it into the real world, really do need to start treating AI agents like a new human workforce and manage just like humans. And Raja, I believe this is how you usually approach and guide companies that you've worked with Agento, right? Maybe you could talk about how you're able to kind of guide their thinking around this.
I think that's a hard part because we do not want to, by design. I mean, traditionally, the way we have looked at software, um, going back to that SaaS deployment argument, there's a complete so things that were patterns back then, they are anti-patterns right now. So uh, um, a one-time largely a one-time cost understanding, right? So let's take cost, for instance, right?
Right.
So, well, I know if I get a specific, for the most part, for SaaS applications, I have a good understanding of how much, what is the cost of ownership of a SaaS platform. But with agentic AI, it depends upon what kind of queries. Are the queries complex or not? How many data sources are connected? And even we have another paper that is work in progress. I think an initial draft is out there on archive, where we talk about basically this um, same agent, same system, same tools, all the configuration is same, but um, it's a different query with the same intent. So you ask the same thing, what is the capital of United States? And I say, what is the name of the capital of United States? So so the end goal is the same, not as simple as this, of course. This query is not going to be a problem. But I go and ask, both of us go and ask a question, but I ask a question in a more convoluted manner. You ask a question in a fairly straightforward manner. All of us, we have different ways of expressing. Now, the way LLMs are going to handle this query, it is non-deterministic system. So the way the LLMs will handle it, if there's any ambiguity, then I'm spending reasoning tokens on resolving that ambiguity in
Right.
query. Maybe I will end up spending for exactly the same outcome. You will spend 50% less tokens than I did. Okay.
Mhm.
It could also be that someone said, hey, why should we create custom agents for everything? Let's create one agent and then connect to all systems. And now when you ask a question or I ask a question, there is now too many tools are out there, and the LLMs are spending way too much money or tokens or time in simply figuring out, hey, which tool exactly do I need to call? So those kind of things actually become a challenge.
No, for sure. And these are like challenges that we need to keep at the forefront if we're going to really, successfully transition our AI into something that can be, used in the real world. And I think we're going to get up close to time here, but I just wanted to give anybody an opportunity, of course, to ask their questions. And if you feel free to type them in now, we can go back to some of the really important points. But yeah, this has definitely been an engaging discussion for sure. Lots to learn. We're all on a steep learning curve. I think we're all trying to navigate something that's fairly new. We don't have a long history to draw from. It's not like we have a lot of training data. For people who are working in this industry, we don't have a lot of training data to draw from. So it is still very fresh, and probably one of the first generations to have to figure a lot of things out. But yeah, I just wanted to also thank you, Raja, for going through all those, interesting examples and real world examples too. Like these things can really come up. And obviously these companies did not anticipate any of this happening, but it does come up and it's good to take some of these learnings and try to keep building and improving on them. So yeah, I think it was a fascinating discussion.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe I think we should show a real manifestation of AI agents as
Sure.
teammates, right? So
Yeah.
that might be a good idea. So
Yeah.
I will share my screen maybe for 2 minutes here. So here is how this is our own deployment of Agento. So essentially Agento is primarily, it's a complete end-to-end agentic AI platform that sits inside customers' own cloud. And what you see here is different agents. So this is our DevOps project manager. As you can expect, that this is connected to our Azure DevOps. I can go and ask it about what are the projects, who's working on what. I can actually ask it to review the code, tell me how good, or give me um, feedback on how this code is. Then all of us, we are creating our clones as well, right? So and basically the internally we have this commitment that all of us, we will have our clones, and then if anyone wants to talk to us, they will first go to the clone, ask the clone a question, and if the clone cannot answer, then the problem is that it means that we have not documented things properly. um, and if I go here, so let's say if I go inside, I can interact it in a voice mode. I can interact it with it in text mode. Uh, One thing that I cannot do here is I cannot edit this because I'm in that more of a coworker type deployment mode. But if I go to our studio mode, I can actually go to the same assistant and I can now edit it. Let's say I decided that I want it, right now it is only connected to Azure DevOps, but I want it to be connected to Outlook or Google and so on. I can do that, right? I can control the versioning of agents. I can make the changes. I want to bring in new skills. Right now, there is only a few skills, but I can actually add more skills if I want. Um, but in general, if I want to run evaluation on it, I can run evals on it. I can run red teaming on it. I can look at the deployment history. I can go back to a previous deployment if I like. And the general idea is that there is your IT team. It is going to control um, what agents, your IT team, along with your subject matter experts, they control what agents are deployed. And then you have very, very focused, specific, very focused and specific agents that are deployed that the rest of the company is using. Your marketing team has some agents, you have recruiting team has some agents, your security team has some agents. So essentially you have these categories of agents that you have created, and then rest of the team is enjoying it, using it, and then you're collecting feedback. Um, there is a lot more we can talk about here, right? So, for instance, let me actually go here. If you come here, this is our blog writer. When you go to write a blog, then let's say if I go here, this is this morning I was showing this in my training. If I downvote it, then it goes back into the feedback pipeline. I can actually copy. I can give it more data sources. I can connect it in multi-agent workflows and so on. So this is the view of the world that we have. We have concept of this the permissions more connected in a RBAC fashion, and so on. But that's really the way. That's really the way to look at it. And it would be worthwhile to mention that we will be announcing over the next few weeks. We will be this was today was a more of a broader overview of this AI agents and teammates approach. But how do you really practically implement this? So we will in coming weeks we'll have. We have dedicated sessions on context, MCP, different tools, more of discussions, and how to actually
How to
approach
evaluate and yeah.
evaluation, red teaming,
And yeah.
role-based access control, general AI governance, observability. So we'll have these sessions one by one, um, and we are shooting for targeting for about 10 to 12 sessions, and they are going to be, even if you're not very technical, if you're building a product within your organization, um, I would like to think it would benefit, right? Because what we will talk about is real war stories, anecdotes, real customer stories. Agento is actually deployed at, you can look at the website. Some customers we cannot disclose publicly because we don't have the permission, but we have many enterprises globally using Agento right now, and companies that are organizations that are very, very particular about their governance, both AI governance and data governance, and they want to control their deployment such that their data does not go in um, third-party control. They actually come and use Agento.
For sure. I think we had a good YouTube comment, audience comment come in. So regarding the chain of events being more of it can be a black box step in a way. I regularly advocate for creating scripts and trying to reuse those scripts in case of repetitive prompts. This also reduces token usage.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, yeah. And are you referring to, I don't know who asked this question because it is coming from YouTube, but this is the notion of skills actually. So skills is actually this repeated set of instructions and scripts and assets that you regenerate, and they're optimized to make sure that, think of this as this is a repeatable task. If everyone in the organization is doing it, for instance, in Agento, we have this across the board skill, the Word document skill, or PowerPoint skill, or Excel skill. It is not, so anyone could need it, so all agents have access to this. But there could be some as a search engine optimization skill. Not everyone should have it. Only certain agents would need it. Or writing skills, maybe a lot of them will need it. But there are some very, very domain specific, those tribal knowledge skills, or some very focused skill in my industry, in my company within that industry, in my team within that company, or something that is very specialized. How do you tell the model? How do you share it broadly? And that is where we have built this skill management system, and then there's some method to the madness here, right? So we have organized it in a manner that skills are very, very reusable.
Yeah, for sure. And in some cases, you might see organizations create, every worker is creating a million different agents, all with a little bit of overlap in things that could have
Mhm.
drawn from the skill source and then have it apply to many different tasks. And might be a little bit more efficient than just creating a million different agents to draw from
Yes.
skill
Uh,
would be more efficient.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned this, right? So the way I tend to look at this is um, um, create that ideal skill, and then ideal AI worker that possesses a bunch of skills, and then take that as a unit of work and create that ideal data analyst, create that ideal financial analyst, or from skills go to these AI workers and then form teams. And the beauty of this is once you have created this ideal worker, ideal skill and ideal worker, you can summon and gather these teams um, on the fly. And these workers, as long as you can pay the bills, uh, they can scale infinitely, right? So, the same financial analyst can be working in 10 different teams in a multi-agent setting. So, interesting times actually when you look at it, right? So, but you have to, again, the moment we start looking at these agents as this repeatable patterns deployed in more in as just like you would deploy human workers, I think a lot of things start coming together.
No, for sure. And yeah, that wraps up today's deep dive session. And we discussed many important points, but we have lots more to come. We're aiming for about 10, as Raja said, so that's great. And so this will be a weekly thing. You'll see, follow our, LinkedIn, our social media. You'll see these announcements come out. Keep an eye out. And we look forward to the next one and engaging and learning further.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care,
Thank you,
everyone.
Rebecca.
All right. Till next time.